Welcome into the Big Little Podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Patrick Previty. That is Andrew Greig. We're back with another full episode today. It's been a minute. How you been, bro? How you been?
Oh man, we haven't talked in so long, man. Every feels like I haven't seen you in like 4 or 5 days. It's the longest I've gone in so long. So it's been
Yeah, it's
too
been a
long.
minute. We didn't have the means to do those recaps, so now we're back at it, and we got a full one today. So let's get into this. We haven't really talked too much about the Nuggets and Thunder over the last couple of days because we've been gone, but they're going to a game seven. This is probably the best series so far that we've seen, I would say. Maybe Nuggets Clippers equally as good. Can the Nuggets truly win this game seven, make it two game sevens in a row, and make it to the Western Conference Finals, or are you leaning towards the youth of the Thunder right now?
Yeah, I don't. I think the lean is obviously with Oklahoma City Thunder. They're favorites by 8.5 points, and just in general, they have the depth on this team. Obviously, the Nuggets are not only a little bit short-handed, but like Michael Porter Jr. has been injured this whole series, so it's tough to give the Nuggets the lean just in general. But I mean, obviously, they have Nikola Jokic. Murray is shown to be a playoff riser, so there are means to which that the Nuggets can win this series. But I personally think that my whole take on this series is that if the Thunder win, that they're probably going to be NBA champions, and if the Nuggets win, then it's anybody's game between the final four teams remaining. So I mean, I don't know exactly what's going to happen because I feel like Nikola Jokic can have an insane game and just carry his team to the NBA Finals or NBA Conference Finals, Western Conference Finals, that is. But I think that the Oklahoma City Thunder have to be the favorites in this situation.
Yeah, so I think I picked Oklahoma City to close this out in game six. Um, it's just an unbelievable way like process that this series has taken. It has taken. And I lean towards the fact that Jokic, if he on 2 days rest, if he can drop something like 45 points or something like that, then they're going to win. But, like you said, Jamal Murray, known playoff riser, but he wasn't there towards the end of the game. They really only go six deep, and that's just simply not enough. Russell Westbrook all over the place in game six. And it's just, without Michael Porter Jr., I do question their ceiling if it's as high as the Thunder, even though they obviously have that championship pedigree. And then for the Thunder, it's just about being able to support SGA, assuming he has a good game in game seven. Is their second best player ready? This is a young team. And is Chet Holmgren or Jalen Williams going to be able to step up? Chet's been kind of what you would expect in this series, right? I think like somewhere around like maybe 19 points and 11 rebounds, but it's just all about J-Dub, man. He's got to show up tonight.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said that they only go 6 or 7 deep, but the Nuggets also did get some like really good minutes out of Julian Strawther last time. It was the Julian Strawther game. He had 15 points. He was a +4, and just in general, was really good on that floor and came in for Michael Porter Jr. and like almost like played better than him. So if they can get production like that out of Julian Strawther again, I don't know how consistently
I don't
he
think
can
they're
do
getting that
that.
in game seven, though.
Yeah, I just think that like if they can just get production out of anybody that's not Jokic or in Jamal Murray, they can at least put up a fight. Especially if Christian Braun plays the way that he did, they just need one more game out of each of those guys. And Aaron Gordon didn't have a very good game in Game 6. But if he can rise up to the moment, he's obviously known as one of the better players on this team at this point, probably the third best player on this team now that Michael Porter Jr. has taken a step back because of his injury. So, I mean, it can go. I genuinely think it could go either way. I think that it would require a big game from Jokic, and that it would just require a couple of the other guys stepping up. But if Julian Strawther can have anywhere close to the game that he had in Game 6, you can expect this to be at least a close game.
Okay, I definitely expect this to be a close game. I don't even if Jokic is the only one who shows up for the Nuggets, I think just no shot that there's a blowout. I'll go on the record and say that, but I will also say that I don't even know how much Strawther's going to play. Just to be straight up, I don't. I think he's going to. I think that they're just going to trust those main guys that they've had this entire year, and they're just going to roll with, eight guys will get minutes, and then maybe Strawther does log some decent minutes, especially because Michael Porter Jr. is injured. But I just can't rely on that. But I think we're in agreement that this is going to be a close game regardless. Another thing I think that is important to point out is that Aaron Gordon is dealing with that hamstring injury all of a sudden now, and he was yesterday like his status was up in the air for Game 7. He's obviously going to play. He's questionable right now. He's definitely going to give it a go. I think him picking up Jalen Williams potentially like full court is going to be an option for the Nuggets. They're going to have to see if his defense can help them out a little bit. I think slow down the Thunder. I think that this can turn into a really gritty game. I think the lower this game is scoring wise, the better off the Nuggets are. And then for the Thunder, wouldn't it just be great if like Shea were to get this MVP? Have you seen stuff like this out there?
Yeah, I
Get
saw that
this
Brian
MVP.
Windhorst said that whoever wins the Game 7 is the rightful MVP. And I don't know if I completely agree with that, like even remotely, just because of the fact that the Oklahoma City Thunder came into the series as favorites to win the championship, especially with the Boston outlet came into the series, meaning that like Boston was still in at the time, but still at this point, like ESPN gives them a 50% chance to win the NBA championship. The Nuggets are just not significantly, but they are a worse team top to bottom than the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Oklahoma City Thunder go way deeper than the Nuggets do. So I don't know if that's like a real claim that you can make, especially with voter fatigue on Jokic's side. But I mean, I've definitely seen stuff where the MVP debate gets a little bit ramped up because of the series.
Do they give it in before the games start in a playoff series anymore? I don't even think they do. But like, yeah, no. I wish that they still did that because I've been seeing so many different things about them giving it before this Game 7. I think it would be awesome. You know, whoever gets it, probably Shea would be the person who does. Like, I think it would be a great storyline and something to like see for for that matchup. I mean, I agree with you. I don't think that there is going to be a player that you can just immediately determine as the rightful winner, no matter who wins in this game, because it is a regular season award, and it's tough for me to just like say that one player like deserves it. But I mean, in the playoffs, especially, and also considering that Jokic just doesn't have the team around him.
Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree. Looking from the Oklahoma City, I feel like we focused in on the Thunder a little bit, but like from the Oklahoma City Thunder side, I think that there are like some main points that need to be made about the rest of this team besides Shea, if they want a chance at winning this series and then going on to win the championship. Jalen Williams has been just like a little bit suspect as of recently, and like turning into somebody who he hasn't really been, which is unfortunate because obviously he still is young. And this whole Oklahoma City Thunder team is young, but they need to grow up really quickly if they're going to win this Game 7 because 6 points in Game 6 just isn't enough from Jalen Williams. Isaiah Hartenstein hasn't been very good all series long, and he needs to have a little bit of a better game if they want any chance of winning Game 7. And Chet has been good of recently, so if they can get the normal production out of Chet and Shea, and then get what Jalen Williams usually does, and get what the bench usually does, I think it's Oklahoma City's game to lose.
All right, let's move into Knicks versus Pacers. This is the first time that the Knicks are in the Eastern Conference Finals since 2000, and the first time the Pacers are in the Eastern Conference Finals since last year. These teams have met. They have a long history in meeting in the playoffs. You got any initial thoughts on this series?
Yeah, I think that both of these teams are like have a lot of depth, but maybe don't have just are significantly less top heavy than like previous champions. If either of these teams end up being the champions, I think that like both of these fan bases are very passionate. Especially you saw New York just completely erupt after the Knicks won that series, and Indiana has just like kind of been one of the hubs of basketball in America since its inception. So I'm happy for both those fan bases, and I know on this podcast we haven't really been too high on either of those teams, but I think it's in general, nobody's really picking the Knicks or the Pacers to really get this far, or at least not both of them to get this far. I think that the NBA always tries doing this push on their bracket thing that every year, and like you can make a couple of $1,000s or whatever. No one actually fills it out, or no one actually gets it correct, but they do it. And ESPN had a thing where they put that only 0.5% of people that filled out brackets even had the Pacers and Knicks in their final bracket. So a lot of people weren't expecting this to be the matchup, especially given the fact that the Pacers had to go through the number 1 seed that won 60 plus games, and the Knicks had to go against the defending champions. But I mean, props to both of those teams, and I think it's gonna be a really good series.
Yeah, I agree with your point about neither team really being top heavy, and we definitely haven't been high on them whatsoever during this playoff run. And I think it is partially because they're not as top heavy. Is Tyrese Halliburton good enough to be a one-on championship team? I presented that, and I completely said no prior to these playoffs. I'm starting to think with everything that's shaped out, the Boston Celtics out of this completely. And on the other side, I think both of these teams can beat a Timberwolves team. I might actually lean towards yes. The Knicks, Jalen Brunson's just unbelievable. He is just one of the most talented little guy scorers that we have seen in this league in the last 10, 15 years. Seriously, like it's Steph Curry, and then we're talking about a handful of other guys that are smaller guards that can really enforce their will on the game. And he's not a player that gets played out of playoff series. You have a way to potentially attack him. You do want to get physical, but he still just even through all of that plays through so much contact. And as a known playoff riser, that's going to be something that we say throughout this entire podcast is like he just always seems to show up. And I hate to even use the word clutch. We should almost ban that word here, but he's clutch. Like he's just unbelievable. So I think both these teams have earned it, and they've certainly surprised me even if they are potentially not as top heavy. It seems to be working out for them. It's just really, I think, for the Knicks, all about how well Karl Anthony Towns can play. I think potentially he could have some problems in the front court against the Pacers. They were so good last series against the Cavs that I have my worries, I think, still with Karl Anthony Towns, just as it would for like Julius Randle in the playoffs on the other side of the bracket. And I think that matchup is definitely something to watch. How much help can Jalen Brunson get against this Pacers team? Because this Pacers team is deep. They're talented all around. And that Cavs series, they showed they were clearly the better team throughout that entire series, even with the Cavs injuries that they dealt with in game 1 and game 2. So I think the Knicks, if you can get help, then you can compete with this Pacers team. But if at any point Jalen Brunson doesn't get the help that he needs, I think those are automatic wins for the Pacers.
Yeah, and I think that in both of those series, they prove that no matter what the lead is on both sides, that either team can come back. So I think that the series is going to be interesting from that perspective too, because even if these games aren't particularly close, I think that both teams have an opportunity to come back, especially with how, especially on the Pacers side, I feel like they shot the ball from three like pretty well. So like no lead just feels like insurmountable. Andrew Nemhard had a pretty good series, and just in general, like the other guys, not just Tyrese Halliburton. Tyrese Halliburton had a really good closeout game, 30+ points, and he just in general was the it just felt like he was making every shot that he needed to make to put the Pacers team over the edge. But Miles Turner, I feel like we haven't talked about him enough. He's been one of the better 3-point shooting bigs in this league, and it feels like he's only been in the league for not that long, but he's been in the league for like 10+ years now. And he's just in general has been one of the better shot blockers, and then also one of the better 3-point shooters in as a big man. He had 4 blocks in that closeout game, and then he went 1 for 2 from 3-point line. But in general, like it feels like when he's at the top of the key, that top of the key shot, he is really consistent with and only takes good looking shots, and is just like one of those stretch 4, stretch 5 type of players that you really like on your team. And then Pascal Siakam didn't even have a very good series last series, and the Pacers were still able to pull it out against the number 1 team in the East. So I think that both these teams look really good, and I want to give props to the Pacers a little bit because we haven't been doing them justice on this podcast. But like that is like, I mean, at this point, especially if the Nuggets win their series, I think that any of these teams can win the championship.
Yeah, I question whether these teams can beat the Nuggets, but I definitely do believe that both of these teams can beat the Timberwolves if they do face them in the finals. I'm glad that you mentioned Miles Turner. That's kind of what I was alluding to for the front court matchup against Karl Anthony Towns. I think Miles Turner is one of those players that's got an underrated amount of playoff experience. Obviously, he was there in 2018 whenever this Pacers team faced that 2018 LeBron-led Cavs, and he has been around for forever now, and kind of a player that I don't really think about a ton. But for the Knicks perspective, I think Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, they need to be able to support Jalen Brunson, because I don't really see as many bad games coming from Tyrese Halliburton as the playoffs go on. Like, I don't know if he's going to have another game like he did against the Cavs where he only had 6 points. And was that game 4? Or game 4, game 3. And it's just like, I don't know how much I see that from him. And then I know this Pacers team is so deep, so I need this Knicks team to be able to support him. And this series was great last year. It went 7 games. Obviously, there was a blowout on the road in game 7 for the Pacers, and they were able to win that game. But I think that this will be a close series. And regardless, I think both of these teams are definitely probably pretty happy with where they've gone. But this feels like a chance at, it's obviously a chance at history, but it feels like potentially could be your best chance. Obviously, next year feels like the East is wide open, especially with Damian Lillard going down, the question about Giannis and Jason Tatum and the Celtics potentially having a rebuild. But Knicks versus Pacers. Who do you think that they would most rather play in the finals? One of these teams are making it, which is kind of even crazy to think about.
Yeah, I thought your point about the Nuggets was interesting because I think that given the fact that Michael Porter Jr. has been dealing with his injury status and just the fact that that team doesn't go very deep, their sixth man is Russell Westbrook, who has had a very bad series in that Oklahoma City series. I think that the Nuggets are probably the team that both of these teams would want to play the most, just because Oklahoma City runs so deep. This Timberwolves team, Anthony Edwards is that guy, even though he has suspect games, and Julius Randle has really stepped up to the plate. Maybe if you're a Knicks fan, you probably want to see that Timberwolves team. I think that matchup would be so funny because of the fact that they traded their star players, or one of their star players in the offseason to each other. So that'd be a really interesting finals matchup for all the storylines. But I think that this Nuggets team is definitely like one of the more vulnerable teams. Like they literally fired their coach heading into this offseason or heading into this postseason. And that team doesn't go much deeper than Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic.
That's really interesting, actually, because I will say I think that this Nuggets team, I agree, is the least deep team left in the playoffs. And while that is the case, I think the difference between Jalen Brunson and Tyrese Halliburton and Nikola Jokic is a lot bigger than the difference between them and Anthony Edwards or SGA. And I got so much respect for SGA and Anthony Edwards. I just think Nikola Jokic is on a different planet. And by the time, if they do make the finals, I think they'll have some of that stuff figured out. I don't know if the Michael Porter Jr. injury is just something that he's going to have to deal with for the rest of the playoffs. I don't know about the hamstring injury for Aaron Gordon and what that'll look like, but I do know with Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, they could be the best two players, it feels like, on the planet in certain playoff games. And if you match that up against the Knicks team that could potentially have Karl Anthony Towns played out, I like that. Or the Pacers team that doesn't have the ability to match that. I don't know if Tyrese Halliburton can get truly on that type of level. We've seen like bits and pieces of that, but for the rest of this upcoming series and the playoff and the finals, I don't know if he could potentially do that. I think that would be really interesting. That's why I like the Nuggets, just all things considered. But yeah, I certainly don't think that any team wants to play OKC in their depth. I think that they're pretty much just a way better built team than the Pacers or the Knicks.
Yeah, and I just wanted to shout out Mitchell Robinson too, just as a final point on the Knicks. He made each of his first 6 free throws in that game 5, the first closeout game that they had. So we didn't cover that game, and I wanted to give him his props because they were doing a hack a Mitch, and he was able to push through it. So I thought that was funny.
All right. Well, we talked a little bit about the Celtics dealing with Jason Tatum's injury. They were able to win game 5. Yeah, game 5, excuse me. Yeah, they were able to win game 5 and take a game off the Knicks at home, not let them win on their home court. And game 6 was just maybe a true look-see into exactly how next season is going to go for them. Look, they're potentially going to have to go through a retool. Obviously, their salary cap situation is madness. What are your first initial thoughts on what this team is going to look like for next year?
I think that it's so funny what their ownership did like last year, or like whenever they re-signed or gave Jaylen Brown the contract extension, everybody else on this team, like just those big contracts, because that ownership knew that they were going to sell off the team. So they went all in on giving everybody big contracts, knowing that they wouldn't be able to pay everybody in the future, or the future ownership wouldn't be able to. So they have a bunch of guys making probably more than they should be making. And it's just it's just unsustainable at this point. This is a championship team. And if Jason Tatum goes down, I think that they probably still lose that series because if Jason Tatum doesn't go down, because of the fact that they were on the ropes and probably already going to go down 3-1. So who knows what happens in that series? I want to give all the props to the Knicks for winning that series. But man, this Celtics team is going to look drastically different. We've got the Shams reports. If you just look at the salaries that each of these guys are making, like Jaylen Brown makes nearly $50 million a year. Jrue Holiday makes $30 million a year. Obviously, Jason Tatum makes close to $35 million a year, and he is going to be up for a contract extension within the near future, within the next 2 years. I want to say Derek White is making $20 million a year. So you have 4 players making at least $20 million a year, 3 of them making over $30 million a year. And then somebody's going to be on the move. So this team is just going to look completely different over the next couple of years. And then I didn't even have Kristaps Porzingis' number. No, you have 5, 1, 2, let me count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have 5 players making at least $20 million a year, and 4 of them making closer to $30 million a year. So this Knicks team or this Celtics team is going to look drastically different as we approach this offseason, and we'll see how it all shapes up. I think that at least Kristaps and Drew Holiday will be in talks, if not Jaylen Brown as well.
Yeah, the Jaylen Brown thing is really interesting because he was talked about for all of those years as a potential player to be traded. I think his number is just simply too high, like his contract, and for what teams feel like they're getting back, which is a true number 2. I don't think that he is going to be dealt. And I think for the Celtics, they're going to want through this entire retooling process some sort of continuity. Now, I don't know what's going on with Kristaps Porzingis right now, but if they can get off of that, that will probably help them in the long run. You may have seen like the best or highest basketball that we have seen from him so far in his career, or we're going to see with his playoff run last year. And then, yeah, Drew Holiday, older aging guard. Maybe they want to move off of him and try to get a little bit younger in that aspect. I think we're going to start to see a lot of people criticize the new collective bargaining agreement too. There's already been people who have been talking about it. And it's one of those things where, yes, the Celtics feel like they're overpowered and they had just this beast of a team. And you're right. The former ownership went all in, got that championship, raised the value of the franchise and then sold. But it still feels like this team is going to be salary cap strapped to the point of like you almost will feel bad for them and the moves that they have to make. I think it's kind of a shame to see this team kind of dissolve and in this way. Obviously, they would have had next year with Jason Tatum. I think they would have just completely ran everything back. But now it seems like looking ahead past next season, they're going to have to make some tough decisions a lot earlier than they probably would have.
Yeah, and if you look at guys like Kristaps Porzingis, I think that he's one of the names that like probably has to be moved in all of this, making nearly $30 million a year. And then you have a guy like Luke Cornett stepping up in his place and getting 7 blocks in the first game that he played significant minutes in. And then just in general, obviously he's not as athletic or can't stretch the floor as much as him. But in general, if you have a guy that's making $28 million less than him and can provide you anywhere close to the production, I think that you can take that. Obviously, it's a much smaller sample size, but I think that the whole process around this is probably building around your true star player, who is Jason Tatum. Like, obviously, we don't know like how he's going to look after his injury, but assuming he can get back to what he is at his core, which can be a number 1 on a championship team. He wasn't the finals MVP, but he was the best player on that team for like the majority of the season, if not all of the season besides the finals. So I think that he's probably the piece that is immovable in all of this. But and then I think that you made a great point about the Jaylen Brown thing. It's just going to be tough to move him because he's making nearly $40 million a year. And that is something that you pay your number 1 player, if that. And he is like at best a true number 2 who can be a playoff riser and somebody that can step up in the playoffs. But I just during the course of an NBA season, like he's not going to be the best player on the best team in the NBA. And he's making $40 million. So it's going to be tough to move him, but if possible, I think that's something that ownership's going to want to do.
Yeah, I don't know who exactly would be buyers for Jaylen Brown. I think that's probably the issue too, just based off of how they're trying to build their teams, who exactly would be all that interested in his services. And, a name that we haven't mentioned is Peyton Pritchard here too, where he's getting paid not a lot of money whatsoever. He's on a very valuable contract for the Celtics. That is a player that they would also probably want to keep here in the near future and try to, like I said earlier, keep some of that continuity for when Jason Tatum does return. I mean, they certainly don't want to completely give up on what's going on right now. I think their status or the stock right now is down, but I think it's inevitable that if you keep those 2 guys, still have Peyton Pritchard, and you can retool in a smart way, maybe potentially have a couple draft picks that hit, that this team can be back. It's not unreasonable to think that in a couple of years at a very similar spot that they were in right now, but they're gonna have some big questions to answer. All right, well, a team that we haven't really spoken about too much. We talked a little bit about them in the Knicks versus Pacers series preview because obviously the Timberwolves are a team that are on the other side of the bracket. But the Timberwolves made the Western Conference Finals after winning Game 5 against the Golden State Warriors. Warriors did not have Steph Curry for a majority of that series. But when we look at this team facing either the Nuggets or the Thunder, we're going to know by the end of tonight. What are you looking at, or what do you think their odds are to make the NBA Finals?
They're probably somewhere around like 40, 60. I definitely wouldn't count them out, especially given the fact that Rudy Gobert has like been failed to like been like has failed to be by the other team played out of a series as of yet. And I don't think that either of these teams are going to want to play him out of a series, just given the fact that they both play bigs between Nikola Jokic and Isaiah Hardenstein on the Thunder and Nuggets respectively. And Julius Randle has just been a significantly better playoff performer this season than he has proven to be in the past couple of years with the Knicks. So I think that this team definitely has a shot. Do I think that they are even close to the odds-on favorite to win the championship? No, but if you can get consistently good performances out of Julius Randle, and then that same breath, Anthony Edwards has probably been less consistent. Julius Randle has probably been the most consistent player for the Timberwolves through this playoff run that they've been on, and Anthony Edwards has been a little bit less consistent. So if you can get some consistency out of both of those players, some good games out of Rudy Gobert, Jaden McDaniels is always going to play hard defense. If you can get offensive production out of him, this team is really good, and I think that like again, it depends on how that series shakes out between the Nuggets and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Because if the Nuggets win, I think that it's wide open for anybody. And we saw it last year that the Nuggets lost to the Timberwolves in the playoffs. So I definitely give them a shot to do it again.
Yeah, I've been waiting for Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert, and I am still waiting. But I will say that with Anthony Edwards, he is a bad man, and I would not want to go play a team that is led by him whatsoever. I think part of this Timberwolves underrated or less spoken about run is kind of due to the fact that the Lakers got all that buzz in the first round. And then when Steph Curry went out, everybody was kind of waiting to see if they could get to game 6 for his return. And it obviously never happened. So people are kind of just putting them on the back burner in both of the first 2 playoff series. And now with this amazing Nuggets Thunder series and then the Knicks making the first conference finals since 2000, they're not exactly making the headlines, but I think that's a perfect place for them to be. And if they get taken for granted again, they can use that as more motivation, as a slight. And I think that they got a really good shot at beating either the Thunder or the Nuggets. I would agree with you. I think that the Western Conference is certainly, in my opinion, I don't know. I don't think that they have the 3 best teams remaining, truthfully. But because I did just say the Knicks and the Pacers would be able to give the Timberwolves a really, really good series. But I am starting to think that the champion is more likely to come out of this Western Conference with those teams still aligning. And I do, as as you just said, agree that the Timberwolves, they did just show that they can beat this Nuggets team last year, that they can beat either of these teams that come out. I think that they do have a pretty good matchup against the Nuggets. The Thunder makes me question a little bit just with their depth and if Rudy Gobert and Julius Randle end up just not showing up. But yeah, this Timberwolves, I like your 40-60 mark. They got a really, really good shot. They got a really good shot. And so just no slight to them. But I don't know if they'll be able to do it. But if those 2 guys play well, I don't know who's going to stop them.
Yeah, and up to this point, they're going to be tied with the Pacers for the least amount of games played going into the conference finals. Both of them playing 10 games, and this Denver series of like extending out. Obviously, Denver is going to have played 2 game 7s if they move on to the next round. And then Oklahoma City, after sweeping the first round, they're going to have to go to game 7 with one of the toughest teams in the NBA and be on a day's rest. Obviously, they'll still be at home, so that gives them a little bit of an advantage there. But still, and also Minnesota came out flat last time. It was more rust than it looked like it was more rust than rest helping. Last time they came out after a long break, and the other team was just off 1 day's rest. Especially that Golden State team that didn't even have Curry for the second half. You just assume that they pull it out. So who knows how that will actually end up playing out, especially against a better team in the Oklahoma City Thunder. But I think that the fact that they're not having, and they are a young team, so who knows how much that actually affects them. But the fact that they aren't having to go long into these playoff series, only have played 10 games going into the conference finals, and the fact that they're going to be off like nearly a week's rest, while the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to be off a day's rest, I think that is something that could play into how game 1 looks as well.
So,
or whoever wins that series.
Yeah.
I said Oklahoma City, but
yeah. So what does this ring do for Anthony Edwards? Like, this would put him in a spot, I think, where we're talking about there are going to be some people who call him the best player in the world. I think that that's still reserved for Jokic, but he would start to really be in conversations of, this guy is as good as some of the greats that we have truly seen. It's not just those Michael Jordan, he plays like him comparisons. It's he's got a resume, or he's building a resume to start to prove that. He's almost in like his D Wade era where he's got one of those rings out of the way really, really quickly. We're not counting down the years where he doesn't have one. I think that puts him in a really, really good spot. And honestly, I'm kind of rooting for it. He'd be able to match some of the all-time greats and their resumes if he were to win this championship this year. And then who's to say it can't happen again next year?
Yeah, and I mean, I think that you make a great point at the end too, because of the fact that if they can get through either of Denver or Oklahoma City, the Western Conference, like you said, it feels just like they are a little bit. It looks like they're the better conference right now, just like straight up. So if they can get through the West, and it feels like they had a good chance of doing it last year, but if they can get through the Western Conference like this year. I think that there's no reason why they can't do it again for the foreseeable future. And it just looks like if they can, no team feels like they're unbeatable at this point. So if Anthony Edwards proves he's that guy and proves that he can just consistently be a playoff riser, then there's no reason why this Timberwolves team can't continue to just be great in general, especially if Julius Randle is going to play the way he is playing right now. Can you expect that regularly? It's yet to be seen, especially given the fact that up until this point, it looked like Julius Randle did the opposite in the playoffs and actually shrank when the moment came a little bit too big. But I mean, who's to say that like this Timberwolves team won't be in contention for years to come, especially given the fact that there are no real super teams anymore, and especially with the salary cap and the CBA rules the way that they are, it doesn't look like there's going to be any overpowered super teams for years to come. So yeah, it just NBA feels like it's wide open in general, and if Anthony Edwards can get that first one, who knows how much he can stack.
I remember saying that about Chris Middleton for all of those years until that run in 2021 for the Bucks, that he just wasn't going to be able to be enough to be the number 2 on a team. And Drew Holiday obviously helped that a lot. He was potentially the actual number 2, but Chris Middleton had so many amazing games during that run for the Bucks that he kind of shook that reputation. And then even after that, in the years, after, if he was healthy, he played extremely well. He played extremely well in that first matchup against the Pacers for the Bucks, and obviously wasn't on the team this year, but like he kind of shook that reputation that he had, and some players will do that, and they'll rise to the occasion. So maybe that is what Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert end up doing. And if they do, just like we probably said with Giannis, if Chris Middleton could show up, they're going to have enough and they're going to win the NBA championship, and you're going to give him enough moments or enough chances to create moments to be great. And Giannis certainly did that in the finals against the Bucks. So this Timberwolves team certainly has it if those two guys can play well. Speak now or forever hold your peace. I'm going to throw this at you just to end the podcast. If you got anything on your mind that you've been thinking about that you want to say before we get out of here.
Yeah. So last night I stayed up until 11 p.m. watching college baseball, and you may be asking, why am I watching college baseball? Right? In my spare time, I do some reporting for one of the media companies in the Orlando area called the Sons of UCF. So naturally, I'm a UCF Knights fan, and or just like I report on the team, so I have some vested interest, you can say, right? Their baseball team specifically. Unfortunately, the team got off to a hot start and then eventually just ended up tailing off, and they play in the Big 12. 14 of the 16 teams in the Big 12 have baseball, and 12 of those teams make the conference tournament. UCF was the 12th team in, or the last team in, as of the weekend starting. And going into the weekend series, all they had to do was either sweep their opponent or win 2 of 3, and like the BYU Cougars, who are the main team that they were going against, also only win 2 of 3 or do worse. The Knights managed to lose both games that they had played up until today, and it's just super unfortunate because they lost both games 5-4. They had run scoring opportunities in both those games in those ninth innings, and just a very sad, unfortunate way to end the season. BYU ended up winning the first 2 of their games, so the Knights are officially eliminated, and my job there is officially done for the season. And it felt like they had so much more promise. So just a little bit of a sad way to go out, and a little bit of a sad night last night watching the UCF Knights officially go down.
I was actually going to stick with baseball for a second there, but my mind went to the NFL. I'll say this really quick about baseball before I get to the NFL point, and it is that Orlando is continuously in working in the shadows to make a push to get a baseball team here. Now, I don't think Major League Baseball plans on expanding, so I think it would potentially come from the Rays if they were to stay in the state of Florida with everything that has gone on with that Tampa and St. Petersburg contract. If they want to stay in Florida, I think Orlando is the way to go. I think they just approved a $1.5 billion stadium, and they're getting a lot of like private funding for it, which is really great too to see. So Orlando's all in. They're trying to figure out, I think, an exact spot for it, whether or not that's going to be like downtown or a little bit further outskirts of that. They're going to potentially try to make a run at it. They're going to call it like the Orlando Dreamers. I think that's really cool. So Orlando, can it be a baseball town? We'll wait and see. But the NFL, there is no sports league, in my opinion, that is truly year round. I know we talk about it a lot, and I think the NBA gets really, really close, but then it kind of, goes off in August. Who cares about rookie minicamp? At this point in time, every rookie's picking up the playbook super well. Every rookie is making an unbelievable catch that's posted on social media. Every time the quarterback is being a leader and he's mic'd up and he's got all of the right things to say, or that defensive lineman that they just drafted in the 4th round is an absolute stud, a gem, a beast, a combine warrior, and it's translating to the football field. It's just, the news right now is just so bland. Of course, every draft pick is going to be the next best thing, and it's just, do you care about rookie minicamp?
Oh man, you didn't see Jackson Dart introducing himself to all the reporters and telling them to
He's a
go
good
name
guy.
by name? He's
Those
going to be the next
intangibles,
best
man.
thing.
Yeah, I did see that. The intangibles, bro. It's what matters. And then all the Cleveland Browns accounts just filled with Shedeur Sanders content, which from a social media manager perspective,
You
cannot
gotta
blame
do
them.
that.
Yeah, you have to do that. That's your job. If he's bringing in the views, he's bringing in the views. He's probably one of the highest jersey sales in all of the NFL right now. So you got to do what you got to do. But every rookie's making the right decision. Every rookie's ready for day one. They want to fight and die for their quarterback. That was actually a really great clip, but that was during the draft. But still,
Yeah, well, Campbell, bro, he's looking like the next best. He's looking like the best thing since sliced bread.
that's what I bought. That when he said that, I bought that. But that was the only thing that I've bought this entire way, bro. Like it's like every single rookie is
Even like
ahead
Matthew
of
Golden
schedule.
going "Go Packers" or whatever he said instead of "Go Pack Go." That was hilarious. He literally was like, when I say "Go Packers," you say "Go Packers" or something like that. It was so funny. And on the broadcast, they were just like, he might have a couple of things to learn about this, but
And then Travis Hunter, he kind of looks like a little kid out there sometimes too. I remember like
he's
whenever
just
he
really
was
skinny.
putting on the helmet in the press conference, huh?
He's just really skinny. His like arms aren't like that big, so
He is a
yeah.
lot more slight of a build than I really recognized, I feel. Like,
Especially relative to NFL players.
yeah, what did he actually weigh in at the combine at? Or he probably didn't weigh in at the combine, but what was his like official weight entering the draft? I want to say he's like 180 max.
Yeah, I'm not gonna have an official number for
Yeah.
you off the top of my head, but yeah, no, I think that like just in general, I don't know if you've seen like I think it's Jimmy Horn. I know it's one of the Colorado receivers that got drafted. I'm pretty sure it's Jimmy Horn, but he was like, yeah, I don't know if it actually was, but one of the Colorado receivers that got drafted, there were like 4 of them, and he was like, I'm ready right now, and he was like, he went to the Panthers.
Oh,
Like
it was. You got him right.
yeah, I just think that clip is so funny because everybody's rooting for him now, and he is like that Panthers wide receiver room went from like nobody to like a couple of dogs pretty quickly. Because if he can be anything, obviously they got Tet and Adam Thielen's still there. So I mean, that wide receiver room could look a lot better, and it's just up to Bryce Young to throw them the ball now. But I think that we've got a lot of people to root for, and especially with social media nowadays, you get to like see the extended clips of them getting drafted and all these different things that everybody's kind of rooting for players, but we'll see who actually pans out.
Yeah, the NFL offseason is in full swing. There were 2 posts that I was actually reminded of when you were just talking. One was the Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett one when they were comparing the hand size. Kenny Pickett just can never get away from this like hand size thing. Also, Joe Flacco is like the wrong person to compare anybody to realistically. Bro, Joe Flacco is huge, bro. Like he's got like these massive hands, bro. Sorry. But also, when I said that every rookie or every young player is getting positive buzz, one player that just seemingly never really gets that because the front office just doesn't. I don't think they are very fond of him. Anthony Richardson.
Shamar Stewart.
Oh, Shamar Stewart, maybe. Well, I was gonna say Anthony Richardson. It feels like they're really actively trying to replace him right now. And I think it's like one of those offseason stories that might get brushed under the rug just because it's like the Colts. How good can they be next year? But Anthony Richardson, this is making
Aaron Rodgers is going to the Steelers, right?
Huh?
Aaron Rodgers is going to the Steelers, right?
No, I said
Other
Anthony Richardson.
no, I know, but the other AR. I was just like when you said AR, I was like
I
just
don't
got
think
me
that's
thinking.
been confirmed like at all. I mean,
I,
I would have guessed if it was going to happen, it probably should have already happened.
he said he's dealing with some personal stuff, so. But,
Bruh.
no, let's not go down this route. He's gonna call us out on Pat McAfee, bro.
Bro, what is going on with Aaron Rodgers that is preventing him from just signing the papers to go to the Steelers? Is he still really considering retirement? It's just the Steelers or retirement at this point, right?
That's what it looks like. Apparently, he met with them privately, and they had good conversations. He said that on the Pat McAfee show, but he just has stuff in his private life that we don't know about. Like, and it seemed more genuine than it like has been in the past because apparently he's like getting like married or he has like some family stuff that he's actually trying to work out.
Oh,
Or
he's
something
getting
like that.
married?
Or he has like a significant other that he's been talking
Oh,
about, something like
all
that.
right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know like what all the details are on that. So I mean, who knows? But NFL.
Aaron Rodgers going to the Steelers feels like the guy who got out of a long-term relationship and then goes to the strip club and thinks that the stripper's in love with him. It's like feels like that kind of match. So, well, on that note, this has been the Big Little Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Previty. That is Andrew Greig. We'll see you guys next time.